What about people, like I'm getting ready to travel to Asia at the end of next week. Jet lag, so obviously when you travel to another time zone, your circadian clock can reset. Do you think the most important thing is bright light exposure when it's light? Is that what's going to help reset me?
Yeah, so it's a very complicated question because there is light and also, as I said, there is food, and we'll get to that.
Yes.
But one important point that you brought up is jet lag. And although we relate to jet lag when we travel, there are nearly 15 to 20% of population in this country or in any industrial country that works in day shift or night shift. So almost in every few days, they are going through that jet lag that we dread to go through. So for them, it's very stressful to go from day shift to swing shift to morning shift to night shift and all these shifts. And what is interesting is most employers think that it's very stressful, so let's let them do the swing shift or night shift for maybe 4 days in a week. And then for 3 days, they're again trying to be social. They're trying to catch up with their friends and family, so it's very stressful for them. And that's the biggest area where light management or lifestyle management will have a huge impact on figuring out how best to schedule the shift work so that these guys will go from day to night shift or swing shift without compromised fitness and with a good family life. So we're still learning how to shift them. It's not easy for them to shift in every week for 4 days in one shift and 3 days in another shift. But light is a very important aspect of that, particularly individuals who work the night shift. They come home and they try to sleep throughout the day in a dark room, of course, and then if it is winter time, they barely get any light, any sunlight or bright light. And at work, you never get indoor environment. We rarely get more than 1,000 lux of light. So these people are continuously staying kind of in a dim winter environment during their night shift. And so that's one area where managing light will have a huge impact on productivity, health, social life, etc. Right. But as I said, light does half of the job, and then the other half is done by food.
Right.
So you also pointed out another thing. You brought up the example of stress hormone cortisol. Cortisol is regulated by circadian clock, but at the same time, we know it's a stress hormone. So if you have stress in the middle of the night when cortisol is not supposed to be high, it will not just wait for the morning time. Your cortisol will go up, and we know that. So similarly, the master clock sends the signal that when it should be day, when we should be eating, and when we should be fasting. And accordingly, the liver clock, the gut clock, all these clocks, they time themselves. And when I said time themselves, what happens is, just imagine there is you are kind of driving in a downtown area with a lot of stoplights and green lights, right? And if you imagine if there was no light anywhere, then there will be a lot of accidents, so there will be a lot of traffic congestion. So having the lights turned on and off at the right time help the traffic move. Similarly, in our liver, if you imagine we are eating a lot of different type of food that has to be metabolized, that has to be broken down, sorted out, then a lot of things that we don't need for our body, for example, the artificial sweetener, the coloring agent, the flavoring agent, all of them go to another conveyor belt. They get excreted out, and the protein gets broken down, and they build up other part of the cell. So a lot of things are going on at that time. So it's almost like you're bringing in food, dividing them into different parts, and moving through this conveyor belt or traffic. So not everything will happen at once. So there is time for protein to break down, there is time for glucose to be made, there is time for nucleotide to be made, there is time for bile acids to be made, different hormones to be made. So the clocks actually help time different things. And when clocks break down, then what happens is you can imagine either a traffic jam or a big pileup. So the metabolism is not efficient anymore. There is a lot of byproducts just lying around, and that stresses the cell, and then we get to the disease. So my point is, although we have clocks, these clocks also respond to when food is coming in. At the same time, when the food is coming in, if the kitchen is not ready, the food is not going to stay in the garage. So our body is not built that way. It will come and then will light up the fire and the food will be prepared, but then the traffic lights are not on, so there will be a traffic jam. So that's why the peripheral clocks, actually, they have a clock, but they also respond to food. And the food tells them when to time their activity. So when we travel, our lighting changes and our food time